So yeah, the objective was to create a situation where I was dangerous. I think we all are looking for a way to be dangerous that way, just like I was talking about, not Milo Yiannopoulos dangerous, but the way I was talking about in my last video where I talked about the social engineering and how I think really the elites know how benign it is, and everything that's public information, and that's why keeping it public is important, is more than enough to look at and say, hey, but things that aren't public information should be public information, a lot like report cards. And what we get, because just like the shame of sex is used, our sex is used to enslave us. We gotta, okay, this is what we are, this is what we get, and I gotta get married, and then I'm going to live in a single family home, and the byproduct of the sex is gonna be children, and I shouldn't think about how high the ceilings are for people that are richer and worth more. Our ceilings may be low, the place may look dingy. And these people are just byproducts of our uncontrollable human urges that the Catholic Church looks at it. Holy matrimony is the way to excuse how do we make a place for something, and what we've done with Jesus Christ, and when they were canonizing all this stuff, we look at the Apocrypha and all that. There was text that had Jesus Christ positioned as a great father, and Mary Magdalene was the wife, and they said, okay, well, for what we're gonna say that we're gonna get rid of that because it looks a lot better when it's chaste. That this was the Navy SEAL. Jesus Christ is Socrates made a Navy SEAL, and so what we're gonna do, since Christianity emerges out of that tradition, the 12 apostles are not too far removed from the academy, and they came up with this book by committee, and they taught these beautiful things, very tear-jerking things, turn the other cheek kind of stuff, and they wrote these beautiful books, and some of it was really by kind of evolution of an idea, but these ideas were something that emerged out of a common core, like common core education, teacher education. And so with that said, we're going to use sex as a way to enslave people. And sure enough, that's what it does, because that informs, okay, we're going to have tax breaks, or we can do something called file joint kind of stuff, and we can file joint, and then we can do something where, because we combine income as poor people in order to do all that, but when really the richest people wouldn't do it that way. I might be wrong. I looked at Donald Trump's tax returns. It looked to me that he and Melania did file jointly one year, but they've got all this other stuff. Donald Trump, and here's the secret: Donald Trump is not Donald Trump. It's Russian nesting dolls, entities inside of entities inside of entities. So Edward Snowden's idea of Russian nesting, but I like that kind of Russian nesting. I've always been into corporate structures and seeing lines connected to other lines, and this company does this, and it's all kept in that container. And in terms of real estate, ownership and investment, a lot of attorneys these days, what they're structuring is situations like that. Okay, there's a trust or whatever, and then it's going to be an LLC that owns, but you keep them in containers that way in case someone, like a tenant, sues you, and they can't touch everything else. They can't sue. They can only touch because it was a business for that. Every property is a business, let's say. Although Robert Kiyosaki says in his Real Book of Real Estate that sometimes if you look at it that way, it's not a good thing, because quite frankly, if you're going to take out mortgages to buy single family homes, not a good idea, even fourplexes. It's just, you got to get into apartment buildings. Okay, if you're going to do that, because it's better to have something than nothing. Or we get subject to, right? I look at that kind of stuff. We want to take title subject to. Or someone donates a single family home to you. Okay, well, we've got, we're going to put tenants in, and we're going to rent this out. And so now you want it to be owned by an LLC. But sometimes you're going to want an LLC to own like a couple. Because what Robert Kiyosaki says is you don't want your asset protection, it's all under asset protection, to be far beyond what you need, because if it is, then you're gonna have a lot of problems. For instance, in Nevada, in order to register one LLC, I know some lawyers, and you gotta ask a lawyer, I don't know, but they're actually taking advantage of something called the Series LLC. They don't have that in California, they have it in Nevada, but it's a little bit like, as I understand it, the Series LLC is it then morphs by law to function as, they can only sue this part of the series. So it's like you can just kind of retroactively, it protects the owner to where in court, well, then this other stuff was part of other series inside of the LLC. So it's magic retroactive and because you're the owner of it, it helps you if you get sued, kind of think that way. But California doesn't have it here. So, but and yes, and so Nevada, by the way, does have a great asset protection trust that they don't have in California. A lot of people in California, especially up there, Sacramento Bay Area, do know about the Nevada Asset Protection Trust. And again, you have to talk to your lawyers, but the way I understand it is that it's far superior to what Delaware has to offer for a lot of people, because I think you got these assets and there's a 5-year period, but if you get past that, then creditors can't touch it. People that say you have medical bills can't touch it. Anyone that sues you, it's a good thing for me. I need to look at asset protection because I write books. I'm a controversial person. You've got people that are going to come out of the woodwork saying, you said I got dicked by this guy or something like that, and I didn't. I can prove I didn't. I don't know about that, and I'm going to sue you. So they can't touch it if we get asset protection. That's something that's a level I think at. As I get people to give me these properties, and as I get subject to take title ownership and they just get real estate on my hands. But the point I wanted to make was about a language barrier. That as we piece together the Donald Trump template, I was talking about how, he gets Melania from Estonia and Americans have to get their Melania from like Mexico or something, or from Latin America. Sad economic reality. But okay, in any event, what this goes to is the language barrier. And this has to do with someone like me is a little rough around the edges. You look at Trump, he's rough around the edges. And I have a theory that he actually has cerebral palsy. His mother, very well known for helping people with cerebral palsy, but he was more mild the case. And I think earlier on, if you look at footage of him, I don't know, maybe it's just that a lot like news anchors, they're using their slowed down template, or news reporters are using their slowed down, full disabled template. And I think, yeah, especially in Ivanka Trump's case, when she's talking, she's got this slow, she's not that slow. Her head is really fast. It's just she talks that way to rape you in the head. But in Trump's case, I think he actually, if she's talking the way she would have to talk to her dad, he started out even slower, and he got very, very good at manipulating people and directing people and being this executive. He was studying to be president his entire life, even though he said on CNN, and this is actually one of the key, I think it was on Larry King Live, pieces of 1980s era, there about maybe 19, when CNN came out. He went on one of the early shows on CNN, and he was Larry King Live, and he was talking to Larry King, and he was wearing you sometimes see him in a tie that color still. He wears a salmon colored tie. But it was something completely different. So he was wearing a salmon colored tie, and this is the clothing of the era, looking sleek, but he was so slow. And that I have, my position is that Donald Trump has cerebral palsy. And his mother knew that he needed all of these servants, all of these butlers, and they had to get all of this real estate to pay for all of this help for him so that he could focus 100% on exactly that, on being a great executive, like the stuff I enjoy, on learning how to manipulate people, how to delegate tasks of delegation to other people, how to create entities inside of Russian nesting dolls, and tell lawyers to do this and this and this. If he had not been given that, he might be drooling on himself today if he didn't have that money. And one of the things, of course, that goes with that is your trophy wife. And they knew he needed international. I mean, there's probably a lot of women that were more beautiful than Ivana Trump in New York. It wasn't just that, international is rare. It isn't just that international is, it's that he needed the language barrier. He needed there not to be that Kenny Loggins, ability to connect with his intimate partner. Like, even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. If you can say that to someone, then you are poor. And by the way, if you really read into Trump, he may not like it now, but, and we all start off this way, he was connected to a major leader in New Thought. And he had that as part of his history, that he learned all of this stuff about New Thought, the positive thinking, the stuff he learned from Napoleon Hill, the stuff that Michael Bernard Beckwith teaches, about money. And he was connected to all of that. And if you are, if you can communicate with your intimate partner that way, it becomes a sad desperation story instead of just being.
Please hold on to handrails at all.
And so there has to be a language barrier. And I'm beginning to realize I was connected to many women that had a language barrier, and I was always interested in Europe. And I can't help but wonder, if you look at it from the conspiracy theory perspective of they were actually trying to put people in my way. And one of them was Yeva Bitotaitė. She was a Lithuanian. And now I look back on it. And Jerry Saviano might have been under full mind control or taking some directive to say stuff like this in class, was talking about the women from Lithuania and Ukraine. And it just, as you look back on it in terms of synchronicity, yes, of course I was thinking that way, but and you would just, you would go into the bathroom and jack off the Yavavita Taiti and imagine her hair flowing like, what's her name? Greek goddess, the one that launched 1,000 ships. She ended up in the Air Force, so she launched 1,000 planes. Psyop girl, Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam there in Hawaii. They had her there in Hawaii doing that in the Obama era. But there was a language barrier, and it was just the perfect thing because if I had not been too tarnished by cognitive and economic reality, and had had too much of a mirror, like the term in literature, mimesis. The mirror was held up, well, not mimesis, because we can make it beautiful. Now it's beautiful that I'm talking about it, and we're gonna, get back to the earth, the locust scene. But I just find it very interesting, and yet you think about, okay, if a template's too perfect, but then you look back on it, and in the moment it's like the template's too perfect. Right, but then you look back on it, and well, yeah, a template is always too perfect when you look at the way they tell the stories of the billionaires. And you can say, definitely, I would not have learned all this stuff or researched all this stuff. Like, if there's a woman they try to put in your way who has a mother that sells, say, State Farm insurance, there you go. That's a girl with a rich family office, and then she can help you pay the mortgage when you get a home in rural Nevada or in Las Vegas in the emerging mountains. That just would have had to have been 5 years ago, something like that. Right, and there you go. I got a girl from a family office. That's not a rich family office. that's a woman that sold insurance and has a California license to sell insurance and maybe even be a mortgage broker too, which is good. But that's not someone that has millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions, which is the number we're looking at with these family offices. I mean, we're approaching Waltons, if not a billion. We're approaching the Waltons, Warren Buffett family office. That's not a girl with a family office. That's a girl whose mother works at an office. So you don't learn these things because you don't take the cake, right? If you end up taking the cake, this woman becomes a socioeconomic trap because you don't think bigger to try to get back to the earth, the locust state, and we will. But when something's in your way, it's something to think about. That language barrier would have been a good thing, but I'll never forget when Yeva had a LinkedIn that it says she went to Troy University in Alabama. So how does a woman end up going from Lithuania, the town of Klaipėda or something like that? I don't know how to pronounce it. Klaipėda, with her sister Monica, to Alabama, and of all places, Troy. And you know that Goshen County in Alabama is, we talk about the sacred places here, National City here in San Diego. Goshen County, Troy, Alabama, is a very sacred place on the map for me, because of the family story and how much it should have had been worth. It should have, this is how rich she should have been, this is how rich she should have been, this is how rich she should have been. And then we're going to try to enter them into rich family. The way that Mormons baptize the dead into their faith, I baptize my ancestors into rich families, so that there's all this money for me that they passed down to me through the traditional lines, like Donald Trump got it from his dad. So that, how do we explain where this came from? I was rich family, and they had that much money, they had that much money, they had that much money. But one of the things that's right now, until we can, do the spiritual work, and it is inner work, that have all that money, is these are the real places. And Troy, Alabama. So it's like you follow the same.
For your safety, please hold on to handrails at all times.
You retrace the steps of your great grandfather. They got his wife from Alabama, but she's from Lithuania. But it would have been perfect because it's kind of like a Donald Trump thing where there's that language barrier. And that language barrier is a necessity. So I don't know, I'm rough around the edges. I don't stop developing because you see these reactions in the faces of women that are very well-rounded, very eloquent, like the ones at San Diego State University, that just have this incredible mental force and composure about them. She has it, but because there's that language barrier, and fundamentally, it's rough around the edges on both ends, communication-wise, it doesn't halt you from taking title to all this property, because you start to feel like you don't deserve it. When there being such a eloquent woman in your life ends up, holding too accurate a mirror up to you.